Hello, Africa. Welcome to another episode of The Touchline. On this episode, we'll be talking about Al Hilal and how they were 9 minutes away from the CAF Champions League semi-finals. Instead, they are going home. So what went wrong? Let's break it down for you here on this show. Now, the first thing that I'll talk about is the Ebuela problem. Now, Steve Ebuela has been one of Al Hilal's most dependable players on the pitch, whether in defense or going forward. If you've watched him in the CAF Champions League this season and then also playing in the Rwandan League, you realize that he's in very, very instrumental. Even though he's a defender, he plays a very, very crucial role when they are moving forward in attack. In the first leg, he was sent off in time added on. It was his tackle that led to RS Berkane's penalty in time added on, which was neatly converted by Munir Choya to make the scoreline 1-1. And that moment of madness is what started everything. It's what caused everything. Because the red card that he received in the first leg meant that he will be missing in the second leg. And in the second leg, it was evident that his absence affected the side. Usually, Al Hilal set up in the 4-2-3-1 formation. They did same yesterday with 4 men in defense, but on right back, we didn't have Ebuela there because he was suspended. We had Mamoudou Kamaradini, who joined Al Hilal from Midiema at the end of January this year. So their defense looked a bit shaky. Not that Mamoudou is not good, but you could tell the difference between Mamoudou starting yesterday and Ebuela starting a game for Al Hilal. So the defense was a bit not up to the level that we are used to seeing. They were clearly missing something at the back in the game. And it affected their structure and how they were set up at the back as well. On the right side of attack, where they are usually very, very dangerous going forward, anytime when Ebuela is in the game, you can see that they are very dangerous on the right side of attack. They initiate most of the attacks from the right side. But yesterday, we didn't see very much of that in the game. Defensive-wise, in yesterday's game, you could clearly tell that in the second half especially, El Tayer Boukris, who came on for RS Berkane, in the second half, used that place a lot. He was attacking. Boukris is a wing back, and he was introduced in the game in the second half. And when he came on, RS Berkane used that side of the field as their main outlet for attack in the game. And clearly you could see that, yes, Ebuela is not in the game, and that affected them, whether it was defending or whether it was going into attack. Because when he's playing, he joins in the attack. He initiates a lot of attack from the right side of the field. And so his absence yesterday was clearly felt in the game. Now, we can also talk about the formation setup, how Redcam set up his side for yesterday's game. As I said earlier, Hilal thrives on the 4-2-3-1 formation, where they depend on the two wingers to hit their opponent on counter-attacks because those wingers are very, very quick. In yesterday's game, they set up in a 4-3-3 formation against a 3-5-2 formation from Berkane. Note that Berkane in this game needed to score. They needed to score at all costs. The first leg ended 1-1 in Berkane, which meant that even if yesterday's game had ended goalless, Hilal would have gone through via the away goals rule. So Berkane had no room for draws in their scheme of work for yesterday's game. All they needed to do was to score, and they just did that. So they set up 3-5-2 formation. And why did they set up in that manner? Because they wanted to control the midfield. Al Hilal were consistently outnumbered in the center of the pitch. They were unable to control the tempo. They were unable to build pressure. They were unable to pin Berkane back. Berkane kept trying to attack, especially in the second half. In the initial stages of the game yesterday, El Hilal did some kind of attacking, but Berkane hit back because they had overloaded the midfield, which meant that they were in control of the midfield. And that is one thing that affected El Hilal in yesterday's game. the control, the battle for the midfield that Berkane won at some point in the game. Then you can also talk about how wasteful Al Hilal were. They were very, very wasteful in the game yesterday. Again, at the initial stages of the game. Even after the first leg, Redcam admitted it. He said that his side had been very wasteful. And that trend continued in Kigali. The trend didn't end in Berkane. So the problem is something that has been in existence for some time. They've been struggling to score. So if you fail to score in games like this, then eventually you get punished. They created moments, particularly in the first half, but they lacked the clinical edge. They couldn't finish it. It's either Girumugisha was caught on the ball, holding onto it for too long when he's supposed to just release the ball so that the attack can progress quickly. He holds onto the ball, tries to beat 2-3 players before giving the pass. And by the time you do that, your opponent would have had enough men coming back to defend. And that was one aspect of the game that Hilal lacked agency in. They were also shooting mostly from behind. You have a man ahead who is in a much more dangerous position. And then you decide to shoot from the center line. You don't do that in games like this. You don't do that in games like this. So that is one area that affected them yesterday. They were too wasteful. They were holding on to the ball for far too long, and it cost them at the end of the day. And that is something that the coach needs to look at. Then with that factor that Berkane had, that advantage that they had, the Muni Choya advantage. Muni Choya has been their most dangerous player in most of their games that they've played this season. If you've watched their CAF Champions League from the group stage up until this point, you realize that he's a dangerous player. He's their danger man. And Hilal failed to take notice of that. In the first leg, Choya scored in the time added on to make the score 1-1. And yesterday, he scored again in time added on. You can't keep your eye off that guy. You can't leave him in a game, because immediately you do that, you get punished. He doesn't need 2 moments. He doesn't need 3 moments. He doesn't need 4 moments. One chance and he punishes you. Forget about the penalty that he missed in yesterday's game. But when it mattered most, he came out and he delivered. He scored for his side, and that puts them in the semi-final. And that is another lesson for El Hilal there. You lose concentration, you get punished. Then to top it all, the bigger picture. El Hilal have been knocking on the doors of the semi-final for some time now. The last time they reached the semi-final of the CAF Champions League was in 2015. That is some 11 years ago. This season was their brightest by far, the best they've done so far. They won their group. Yes, they won Group C. That group contained Mamelodi Sundowns and MC Oja. They topped that group whilst playing in Kigali, not in Omdurman. Whilst playing in Kigali, they still topped that group. They went all the way to Berkane. If you know Berkane, it is not an easy venue. RS Berkane have not been beaten in 52 CAF Interclub competition home matches in Berkane. They went there and managed to score and leave Berkane with a draw. That tells you that they had an intention. Their plan was to go as far as they could get, the final. But unfortunately, it didn't go as planned, because once again, they fell short when it mattered most. And in competitions like this, if you fail to score at home, in competitions like this where aggregates decide the final score, if you fail to score when you get a chance, then at the end of the day, you are going to get punished. For Berkane, congratulations to them. Yes, they didn't give up. Moise Shabani and his men didn't give up, because if you've watched them this season, you can clearly tell that it's a pale shadow of the Berkane we saw last season. They were very, very terrific last season. They were too good last season. And so everyone thought that coming into this season competition, they were going to fly from all angles. They were going to score from all angles. But what happened? That 3-0 against Pyramids had a lot of people revising their books. But hey, it didn't matter. They are in the semi-final now. It is the first time they've reached the semi-final of the competition. This is their first appearance in the CAF Champions League. They are a household name in the CAF Confederation Cup, but in the CAF Champions League, they are newbies. This is their first appearance, and they have made it to the semi-final. Their next game is against AS FAR Rabat, and that is going to be a cracker of a match, an all-Moroccan affair. That this will be the fourth time in the CAF Champions League history that two teams from the same country will play each other in the semi-final. The first time was in 1971 when Asante Kotoko of Ghana played against Accra Great Olympics of Ghana. We've seen El Ali and Zamalek play in the semi-final. We've seen Kano Pillars and Heartland FC play in the semi-final. Now we are going to see AS FAR Rabat and then RS Berkane play in the semi-final. Of course, we are also guaranteed one team from Morocco in the final, and that team is going to host the second leg of the CAF Champions League final that will be played somewhere in May. So congratulations to them, to Berkane. To El Hilal, we wish them all the best in their future endeavors. They are doing so well this season. Congratulations to them. We wish them all the best. We know that it is not the end of the world. We know that they are going to bounce back strongly. Hey, if today is your first time of watching this episode, of watching any of our shows here on YouTube, then kindly subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that anytime we drop any new content, you'll be able to receive it. Also, do well to go in the comment section and tell us from our tactical analysis of the game between Al Hilal and RS Berkane. Do you think Hilal did something else wrong that we didn't talk about in this episode? Go into the comment section and tell us about that, and we'll see you here some other time. Thank you very much.